We've spoken a lot about the protests on American campuses, the pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic protests that, in many cases, have gotten violent. In other cases, came close to being violent. And we talked about, even though there's funding behind it, there are outside agitators involved. The students need to be ready to participate in something like that for it to work. And they were ready, and there's a reason why they were ready, philosophically ready, because it fit with the way they're being taught, the views that are prevalent in universities. And you would think maybe if there's one place where this is not the case, that might be in Israel itself, in Israeli universities. However, unfortunately, that is not the case, or it is the case that in Israeli universities, similar views are being promoted. Maybe they're less, the students are less open to it than elsewhere, but the professors in the humanities are definitely teaching similar ideas. Welcome to the Daily Objective, day 213 of the war in Israel. James, your first thoughts on the stuff going on in Israeli campus, and we'll get into some of the details, of course.
Well, it's those details that, the devil is in those details. It's kind of disturbing, as you point out. You would be, I think we would all be more surprised at ferociously pro-Hamas, anti-Israel voices in Israeli academia. In America today, just a little update, over 2,400 arrests have been made on criminal charges. More than 50 universities in more than 40 states are involved. As of this morning, the police are clearing out a riot at the University of California at San Diego. It's spread even to my where I am now, San Diego. So it's across the country, from Harvard to San Diego, from Portland to Georgia. Most of the big name universities in my country. And you're right, it's the ideas. Obviously, they've been conditioned by the ideas that they've been taught, this Marxist colonialist nonsense, this cultural relativist nonsense, deeper still, altruism, the Kantian philosophy that dominates American universities, Western universities in general. But you'd think, as you say, that Israeli universities would be different. The student body would have a different attitude. The students in America have sucked up those ideas and have, to some degree, I mean, they do talk about the outside agitators being comprising between a third and a half of the agitators on American campuses. So if they didn't have widespread student support, they wouldn't be these big things. Why are, as I keep asking, why are they happening at universities? It's the universities that are this whole episode is an indictment of Western universities as such. They are corrupt institutions. They are teaching evil. They are teaching evil ideas in the humanities and have been doing so for quite some time. So it is impossible for Israeli universities to have avoided this. That's all I can say. In fact, one way you could look at it is, I'm surprised there isn't more data. I can understand why there are demonstrations. Those should be put down in the midst of a war for what they are, treason. But the opinions of academics are still rather shocking to me, even at Israeli universities.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about one specific case that made the news. It made the news outside Israel. Owen Jones talked about it. He referred to this professor as a Palestinian feminist professor, which is an interesting choice of words. So this is Professor Nadira Shalhoub-Kevorkian, who was suspended from her role in the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Now, this professor has a history of anti-Israeli statements that were just as disgusting as what she said after October 7th. But after October 7th, some of her remarks included denying that Hamas terrorists raped Israeli women, and and of course she claims that that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. She was suspended by the university, then she was reinstated, and yeah, I think she's a good example of something that is far more widespread. She's just the loudest and least restrained among them.
Think of the irrational paradox here. She is a woman, she's a feminist academic. Part of her studies as a scholar have been to study women's issues in particular. And in the wake of October 7th, she denied, explicitly and publicly denied, that sexual assaults were part of October 7th. Absolutely astonishing. After we'd had significant evidence to that effect, she was still denying that publicly. Of course, she deserved to be suspended. Forget the political considerations, forget the ideological considerations that are obviously warping her mind, which come down to, of course, the ideas that are dominant in academia. Just as a scholar, denying such facts makes her a disqualified academic, in my view. I don't know why such a person should be allowed to teach. I mean, it's like a Holocaust denier. Or can you imagine someone being a professor in the geology department saying that the world is flat, one of these flat earthers, or a historian saying that the Holocaust didn't really happen? There are such people, of course, out there, but they are not qualified teachers of history or geography or geology, are they? They are just simply below the standard of what is obviously a verifiable fact. And I can't understand why any university would want such a person teaching at all. They're not qualified as teachers. They evade demonstrable fact. So it's sheerly on the grounds of scholarship. Now, of course, Israeli universities, like so many American universities, get significant state tax support, and this complicates matters. Unfortunately, as Ayn Rand herself repeatedly advocated, there should be a separation of government and education, just as we have a separation of church and state, and in effect for basically the same reason. Just as there should be a separation of economics and state, but we don't have that. And so we have a complicated situation in which the civil rights of professors are somehow now, because of course, the government can't, in certain cases, take ideological stances. The exception to that is during wartime. If the ideology that the scholar is advocating is promoting the interests of the folks that we're at war with, the enemy, then it does seem to be that even government can then step in and take action. And she really doesn't have a right on the Israeli taxpayer dime to be supporting the ideas that are killing Israelis today. I'd put it that baldly. But yeah, she's just a symptom. She's just the fever, the rash, the disease, the virus of academia today has come out in.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chats. I see there's some discussion of, which is a good thing to discuss, which is we need to define the term Zionism. I agree with that. It's also not an easy thing to do in today's current political context. As I understand it, what it means is that you support the right of Israel to exist as a Jewish state, which is why I say I'm a reluctant Zionist. I would like to live in a world where there is no need for a Jewish state. But I see what happens when somebody walks in London, one of the better places outside of Israel to be Jewish, walks around with a yarmulke and is told by the police, you are quite openly Jewish. If you don't go away from here, you will get arrested. There is a need for that state, and so that's why I think it's the right.
A few years ago I was like you. A few years ago I was like you. I was like, I'm a qualified Zionist. I'd say something like that. Today, after October 7th, Razi, I've totally changed. I am a capital Z, put it in italics, underline with an exclamation point, Zionist. That's that. And if you oppose, and I'm going to go further than this, if you oppose the existence of the state of Israel, you are, in effect, an anti-Semite. It's hard for me to imagine. Now, I can theoretically imagine that, but you can't evade the consequences of, even if you're a rabbi, one of these pacifist rabbis who opposes the state of Israel. It seems to me that what you're engaged in is a kind of self-hatred on a deep level. On a deep level, I can no longer easily separate out in my mind the opposition to the state of Israel from rank anti-Semitism when you see the ugly anti-Semitic statements, violence going on, and now it's spreading, this cancer is metastasizing across all the universities of the Western world. No, no, no. Israel, if it doesn't have a right to exist, if you are calling for river to the sea, if you're calling for intifada revolution now, which is what these thugs on the campuses are calling for, you are an anti-Semite. You are calling for the death of millions of Jewish people. Anytime someone who wears a t-shirt that says Zionist on it walks onto a U.S. American university campus, they are the provocateurs, we're being told. They're the one, as you point out, just wearing a yarmulke, you got to leave here or you'll be arrested. Wait a minute here. The people who haven't, simply because of their ideology, either being Jewish or being pro-Zionist, if they're the troublemakers, we've turned this world upside down, inside out. It's so perverse. They've got it completely backwards. The threats and the violence are all coming from one side. These demonstrators are demanding by force to our attention, and they don't have that right simply because they think their opinion is so important. No, they do not in a free society. And these little thugs need to be arrested. But unfortunately, it's now not only university administrators, it's governments. George Washington University in Washington, D.C. has said for days now that these encampments are illegal, they're trespassing, they're violating the rules, our police can't handle it, and the mayor of the District of Columbia has yet to take any decisive action on an illegal, what the university itself says is a trespassing illegal encampment. They have the statue of George Washington at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. He is covered in a keffiyeh. He is draped with Palestinian Hamas flags that are always being put up around him again. The founder of my country is now apparently a supporter of Hamas, or you're the provocateur if you send in the police. So they're chanting, why are you wearing riot gear? Why are you sending in the police? Well, you're violating the rights of every student there who paid good money to get a good education. You're violating the rights of the universities. And the police, even in some cases, aren't coming in to fix it.
Yeah, and I know it's been a few days, but we will talk about the universities some more in the coming days, the universities in America. I want to go back to what Nadira Shalhoub-Kevorkian said in a minute. First, I want to go to Christian's super chat. Thank you, Christian. He says, an anthropology professor wrote to me today, I was wrong to blame the professors because students weren't listening to professors anyway, but rather to their peers. What would you respond to that claim? I mean, I'm sure some of them follow their peers. Their peers get it from somewhere. The people who, the people who follow somebody, and ultimately the students who lead that movement follow their professors blindly, and are doing what these professors want them to do and have dedicated their lives to promoting.
Yeah, exactly. No, we know the dominant ideas on university. Look at the president of Columbia. Look at what she said about 9/11. This was long before October 7th, what she was saying about September 11th, 2001 in America. That tells you where her ideology is. The Columbia professors who said it was a marvelous thing, the Princeton professors who were glorying in after October 7th, there were professors who were openly professors, university professors. And guess what? In the United States, they were at the time the only people I could find cheering them on. Were college professors in my country. So yeah, no, these students are the students, okay? They're learning their politics and their philosophy and their history from these PhDs and these professors. Let's put the blame where it belongs, with the professors and these college administrators, which is where they are the fountainheads, if I can use that term in a sort of a perverse way. They are the fountainheads, the ugly fountainheads of this evil ideology. Were it not for this, why is it, as I keep asking, why is it universities that are that are ground zero here? Because that's where these evil ideas are being taught and promoted. That's where they will find a receptive audience, both among the faculties and among many of the students.
Thank you, Gail, for the super chat. Christian says, I also found it sad that this professor says my students don't listen to me anyway. I mean, well, it's not sad. Probably it's better if they didn't listen to their professors, certainly in the humanities overall, but unfortunately, yeah, they do. And so let's go back to some of what the Nir Hasson has said. So this is she said at some point Israelis act afraid when they walk by her and hear her talking Arabic on the phone, but they quote should be scared because criminals are always scared. It's time to abolish Zionism. It can't continue. It's criminal. Only by abolishing Zionism can we continue. They will use any lie. They started with babies, they continued with rape, and they will continue with a million other lies. We stop believing them. I hope the world stops believing them. She also, several weeks after October 7th, was signatory number one to an open letter accusing Israel of genocide. Remember, now we hear that all the time, but there were much like with the students, there were the people at the forefront who, were the first to use that word and repeat it, just like a propaganda minister for other people who wanted to exterminate the Jews. They know that if they repeat a lie often enough, it becomes in the minds of some people the truth, or it's easier to spread that way. Yeah, she teaches in a university in Israel where some of her students are in the IDF or were in the IDF. Most of her students probably were at some point in the IDF, and she's talking to them in this manner, in Israel in a way that is really, should concern Israelis.
How much of her salary is paid by the Zionist state that she wants to eliminate, apparently?
All of
Uh,
it.
yeah, right. For on that grounds alone, she should be sacked. But as a scholar, denying facts that are easily verifiable. I mean, facts that are easily verifiable. She's a flat earther. She's a Holocaust denier, and she's teaching at a university. Okay, on scholarship grounds alone, even if this were a totally private university and they had the right to keep her, I would shake my finger and say, you should fire her. You're a rotten university for having her. And any university would be in their rights to fire her as the lousy, fact denying scholar that she is. When you add to it the element that she is being paid by the Zionist state that she apparently wants to see eliminated, and that she thinks is lying to us about facts that are easily verifiable, that alone, again, that alone would be sufficient grounds to can her ass. I do not understand how this woman is even given the time of day as an Israeli academic. She is, as far as I'm concerned, she may as well be saying we're in the middle of a Martian invasion. She's that disconnected from reality. But there's a moral case here, too. She's understanding it as a moral case, and it's that moral case that's overtly blinding her from facts so that she can't see straight. She is so warped mentally, she should teach no one. And
Yeah,
I
by the
trust
way,
a university that would have her teach anyone.
yeah, I think you're confusing her with somebody else. The person saying we're in the middle of a Martian invasion is a different anti-Semitic scholar who goes by the name of Tucker Carlson, and
Right.
that's a joke to the viewer who sent the super chat asking me not to refer to Tucker Carlson as a thinker. Let me quickly
No,
just
I would be happy to debate Tucker Carlson on whether the New Testament is anti-Semitic or not. Tucker Carlson is afraid of the new definition of anti-Semitism that Congress is worried. He's worried that Christians won't be able to teach the New Testament because it blames the death of Jesus on the Jews collectively. Well, I'm happy to have that debate with Mr. Carlson or any other Christian scholar on that substantive point of history.
Yeah, I think in the whole oppression Olympics, Tucker Carlson feels that the Christians have been left out, and that seems to be his latest thing. Um, did I thank Jonathan for the super chat? If not, thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, so just a technical point. If people who are looking forward to the reality show that is right after this show. We had a bit of technical difficulties at the beginning. There's a new link. We'll put it in the live chat, and you can find it on the channel as well. Thank you, Hannah, for the super chat. I want to also talk about this in the context of the protests that are happening in Israel now. quite frequently, once a week in Tel Aviv. I see that they happen elsewhere. And these protests, I know this annoys many people when I say this, but these are pro-Hamas protests. Not in the sense that we see them elsewhere, that people are openly supporting Hamas, but in the sense that these protests that are essentially demanding a hostage deal are, they're looking at what Netanyahu is doing, which is basically offering Hamas almost everything they want and everything they want, and then they say no, and then they demand more. These protesters are putting the blame, and viewers of this channel know that we like to put a lot of blame on Netanyahu. They're putting the blame on Netanyahu for not giving in to all of Hamas's demands, even though he is. So putting the blame is playing into the hands of Hamas so well. I mean, in the sense that the only reason they took hostages was to create the situation. And the people who are dedicating their Saturday nights in Israel now to go to Tel Aviv to protest with a demand for this deal that will release hundreds or thousands of terrorists who will commit future terrorist attacks, like we saw on October 7th. These were people who were in Israeli prisons in some cases, including the mastermind behind it, and that demands an end to the military operation before achieving one of the two goals. Of course, the other isn't going to be achieved with this deal either, because not all hostages will be released, but the important goal of eliminating Hamas. So, yeah, this is, again, this has to come from somewhere, and it comes from the foundations laid out in Israeli academia and among the intellectuals.
If Hamas is not destroyed in Rafah, I mean, it's becoming a joke at this point, talking about destroying Hamas. Even if they go into Hamas and wipe the place out as they ought, Hamas will still survive. But without at least going into Rafah and clearing it out completely of Hamas, and if we release Palestinian prisoners, we are setting up more October 7th. I would ask these hostage families, how many more October 7ths are worth it for your loved one to get back? Now, of course, they're not going to be thinking straight. It's their loved one. But policymakers should be thinking straight. How many more October 7ths would it be worth? How many? Not one. And it is as we've said many times, it is the policy of the Israeli government in doing these deals, these exchanges. I mean, they'll exchange 1,000 Palestinian terrorists for one dead body. America is willing to pay billions to get their hostages back from Iran. So long as we do this, we reward the bad guys, and they will continue to do so. Iran couldn't be happier about these university demonstrators. They couldn't be happier about these hostage demonstrators in Tel Aviv. They couldn't be happier about this academic feminist who denies that rape happened on October 7th. They love it. They are cheering. They're cheering it on. They couldn't be happier that we in the West are putting up with this and have no clear moral answer to it. And that is, of course, the game here. We win or lose based on ideas here. The person perceived as having the moral high ground will eventually win. And so long as we, the good guys, don't stand up with moral clarity and moral conviction, that's the position we're in. They have the conviction. It's mysticism based. It's fanatical. It's racist. It's collectivist. It's violent. But they have the conviction. And so long as we keep caving in and caving in, so long as Biden keeps caving in and showing weakness, they're encouraged. So long as Biden puts pressure on Netanyahu, I understand they had a half-hour telephone call about Rafah, which has still not happened, which was tense according to all the reports. But so long as they see that, they are encouraged with every negative phone call Biden makes to Netanyahu is direct encouragement to them. My president is stabbing Israel in the back repeatedly and giving moral aid and comfort to Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, and all the other evil actors in the region.
Yeah, just I don't know if we mentioned this, but just to mention, so Nadira Shalhoub-Kevorkian was reinstated after she walked back the claims about rape, and she said something, that she also did it in the way you would expect a feminist to do it, which is the hashtag believe her way, which is women have accused, therefore I have to believe them. But then she didn't walk back the genocide claim, but that was good enough for the university. Yeah, I agree with you when it comes to anybody whose spouse or child or parent is being held by these animals. What they say and do, I judge them much less than I would judge anybody else. The people I do judge are the people who are participating in these protests without like that personal tragedy and terrifying situation. They're in the media for the Israeli media for highlighting these as if this is the Israeli media chooses what they highlight. They choose to highlight that. They choose to chose to ignore the protests blocking the aid trucks into Gaza, which is a very well. This is what people should be celebrating in Israel. So yeah, the Israeli media after October 7th for a few days was very patriotic, and of course, when something much like America and Britain and many countries were Israel's BFFs when Israelis were murdered. Once Israel is at the point of acting back militarily to defend itself from this happening again, those people show their true
Oh yeah,
faces.
we're all for Israel until Israel tries to defend itself. So long
Yeah.
as Israel is getting tortured and raped and their babies are being burnt alive on October 7th, okay, we're all pro-Israel. Should Israel do anything to defend itself, of course, they're the bad guys. Moral inversion, ladies and gentlemen, complete moral inversion that is the necessary philosophical result of altruism. I'm afraid that morality that dominates the West today.
I see there's some talk about Al Jazeera in the chat. That is the topic of the reality show. Again, if you liked or hit the notification button for the show, there's a different link. It's not the one you saw before. It's in the live chat. We are a couple of minutes late for that because we were a couple of minutes late for this. But thank you, James. Thanks everybody for watching. And yeah, Al Jazeera has been banned in Israel. We're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. We'll see you there.
Be safe.